Hey guys, this is Odon Gaming. This is going to be another Dragonheir SilentGods video. In today's video, we're going to talk a little bit about the fight against the Eye of the Deep, aka the, let's see if I can read it properly, Abyssolosus, or Abyssolosus, the Chaos Touch, basically the endgame boss for Season 3, which it kind of seems like this one's a little bit tricky and it's pretty tough. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you my team that I'm using with Shadow against this boss, and at the same time I'm going to try and do like a little bit of a, or more of a ultimate guide on it, so we kind of try and see what we can do to tackle this one. And I'm going to tell you from the beginning, this one's a tough one. Like, I have not been able to hit, like we did in the previous seasons, 200 million yet against this boss, okay? So I guess I'm just going to start the run. I'm going to let it roll while we go through the skills. I'm going to explain the team and whatnot, because it's a full 8-minute run. So first off, I have to do the setup, because one thing that you want to keep in mind is you do not want to have them close to each other when the boss does some of the skills. So instead of letting Ozul go crazy, I'm just going to place him over here. Otherwise, when he does his ultimate, he goes close to Aspalta, which means he's going to take more damage. So like I said, the boss is a little bit tricky. Let's start with the skills. The first one, which is 6 seconds, is just hits 3 times. So this one's pretty straightforward, nothing too, nothing too crazy to keep in mind to try to be mindful of. The next one does an AoE damage, and it lands defense penalty, 100% chance to land defense penalty for 10 seconds. Again, I want to emphasize the fact that this is if you're fighting the boss while it's under that 50%. After you hit the 50%, the skills will change. We're not sure exactly how those look, but I'm going to make a later video on that one. So second one, defense penalty 2, you kind of want to try and cleanse it or remove it, or you just straight up ignore it if you can survive. Then with the next ones, this is where it becomes tricky. The third one, which again, all of them are 6 seconds as you can see, so the whole boss has a 30-second rotation. The third one does necrotic damage to all enemies twice. Each time has a 100% chance of dispelling 1 buff from them. Additionally, inflicts buff prohibition on them for 10 seconds if they aren't granted any buffs. This one's worded weirdly, but basically what this one means is if you do not have 2 buffs on your champions and this one goes, so if you only have 1 buff, the boss will remove that 1 buff and then will land buff prohibition. If you have 2 buffs, then it removes those 2 buffs, or 2 buffs or more, it removes those 2 ones, but it does not land buff prohibition. So I guess that's one of the ways you can try and deal with this, is bring somebody in your team that brings 2 buffs, which in my case, you saw that I'm using Thea, because she brings at least 2 ranged ones. She brings invisibility and debuff immunity. Or you see all my ranged ones, apart from Aspalta, they all get 2 buffs, and now when the boss is going to do this one, you're going to see, watch this, so the boss is going to do this one, I still have the 2 buffs, removes them, but no buff prohibition, only on Aspalta, because again, she's now ranged, she does not get buffs from Thea. So this is the first tricky one. Again, you want to try and bring 2 buffs or bring a cleanser, but it's a bit tricky with cleanse because there's like a lot of debuffs going on. So I feel like the best way to deal with this is like I'm using Thea. You might have somebody else again that brings 2 buffs. Just land them before this and you should be pretty good. The next one releases Seed of Rust poison to all enemies by centering them and dealing necrotic damage. So you see those timers that we have over there on all the people, 5, 6, that's what it does. It releases those and does damage centered to that unit, but then it also does to everybody that's adjacent. That's why I have everybody split up, as you can see, because if they're close to each other, they're gonna take a lot more damage. But what this one also does, which makes it a little bit trickier, is it lands healing reduction and shield prohibition for 10 seconds. Keep in mind that healing reduction means you basically do 50% of the healing that you normally do. So it's not healing prohibition, it's just healing reduction, which means that my Thea in this case, she can still do the healing, it's just gonna be 50% of the actual total that she would normally do. So right now, I can still get enough healing from Thea with this one. And then the ultimate charges briefly and deals necrotic damage 4 times to all enemies. When hitting enemies without buffs, reduces their ultimate energy by 30%, and then enters fragility for 5 seconds at the same time. So basically what this one means is if you do not have a buff, all 4 of those hits will push your ultimate energy back by 30%. So 4 times, that means basically all of your ultimate energy is going to be pushed back. So the best strategy to try and bring against this one, unless you're using Shadow like I'm showing you over here, which do not have ultimate energy. You see, watch Aspalta, no buffs, she still does not have it pushed back, because people like Aspalta or Ozul, or basically all shadow people, same principle as people that are aura, the blaze and the shadow energy count as a different thing and not ultimate energy, so you don't really care about how this one's going on. So you can ignore this mechanic. But if you don't have that one, then you have to try and focus your best hits to happen in this small little window. So watch, we're gonna get over here, let me show you. So the boss does that, enters fragility. You see that? That's the fragility one, which means it takes a lot of damage. And then a second before this one goes, it's gonna disappear because this one's 6 seconds. So basically you have that window of trying to do as much damage as you can, basically between the 30 up to 35. But the best way that I've seen it, and the best way that I'm using with other teams, is after the 30.3 second mark, the buff prohibition goes on. So if you do get buff prohibition, you want to try and do everything. If you have somebody that does a buff, like for example, you have maybe rally, and you have somebody that puts AoE rally, well, you're going to want that person to go at 30.3, and then the DPS 30.4 and 30.5. And one really important thing, you also want to try and get your best DPS to go first in that rotation. So after the 30.3, let's say I had Lorenfield, he buffs everybody with Rally. Then the next thing that I would do is I would have my best DPS, my Filto, my Hegio, my Hubert, my Therendor, whoever does the most damage go first, because we have this one over here which basically does damage reduction. And now let's read the passive. So the passive say gains 1 stack of undispellable solidity upon taking skill damage. Removes 1 stack of solidity when the monster casts a skill. It doesn't remove 1 stack, it basically removes all of them once it casts a skill. You see that it disappears. What solidity does is basically, let me see if I can see it over here. You can see basically it gains these stacks and takes 5% less damage. So the more battle skills and the more ultimates you do, the more of these stacks you get, therefore the less damage you're gonna do. That's why I said your best DPS should always be the first one that goes in the rotation. Then the other passives, when dealing damage, inflicts 1 stack of undispellable rust poison. When the rust poison on any target reaches 20 stacks, dispels all rust poison from them and deals necrotic damage to them. Every time this effect is triggered, the subsequent trigger damage will be increased by 25%. So one thing that this boss does not have that we had in the previous in the previous seasons is it does not have increased damage over time. Okay. The only thing that it has is these rust poisons basically increases the boss's damage. But if I understand it correctly, this damage does not go up unless it hits the 20. So once it hits the 20 mark, that's when they kind of like explode, and that's when you see that big burst of damage happening. So it's not as hard as previous seasons where every time the boss hit the ultimate gains damage bonus. It takes a little bit longer because of the way that this mechanic works. So it's pretty tricky, it's pretty tough, and there's very few teams that I've seen that actually hit 200 million. Most of them have pretty strong legendaries, pretty strong artifacts, builds, and all of that craziness. But the good news is you can use a few, there are a few heroes that can help you deal with this, that are, allow you to basically bring 4 DPS and 1 support. Maybe I'm gonna make that for a different video where I show all of my teams, but maybe I'm not. I'm gonna do it at the end after I show all my 6 teams. So as you can see, I'm already at like 134 million. I think this team basically gets me to 160 million. That's the total that I'm doing. So with when it comes to the presets, I don't have many presets with the way the shadow work, because they boost each other so much between Aspalta and Taldi. Basically, I just let them full YOLO. As you see, my Aspalta died. That was a little bit of bad RNG, so I'm not gonna save this one. Let me just back out, but you kind of see the damage that it does. I'm gonna try to do the best. So let's have a quick look at the rotation and the builds, because those one matter, honestly. It's not like previous season, like when we had the Mecha Torque and we had those little balls that we had to do damage to, or the Chief Challenges, the gear sets change. So, first of all, the presets. Apart from Thea, which needs to be on a 15-second rotation, so the way that you've seen that I did it, this is the best rotation that I found for her, so that you get covered for the buff prohibition, so that does not land on you, and at the same time making sure that you block, at least for your ranged people, the shield prohibition and the healing reduction, which you saw that only lands on Aspalta because she's melee. And this is with her, having her on a 15-second rotation, which should not be as hard, because Thea has a total rotation of 16 after she's fully scrolled. So getting her to 15 is not as difficult. I'm going to show you the builds. But having her at 11 seconds initial, then every 15, makes it so that all my ranged people, which are, again, everybody apart from Aspalta, will have those buffs, and it's going to be pretty good. And at the same time, the good thing is she brings healing. So Thea also brings healing for us on the battle skill, and with the build that I got her, it's pretty much enough between her and Taldi that you're going to see having the Mona Lisa's blessing. It's pretty much enough for healers. I don't need anything else. So first of all, let's look at the builds. Thea, like I said, she has the Mona Lisa's blessing, the mythic piece of gear, the chest that's an enlightenment one to help boost her healing. The reason why this one's good, it has a 50% chance to increase the healing that she does. So obviously, because she's the only healer, this one's going to help a ton. Then when it comes to the artifact, this is the free artifact, free, which we got last season from Meander, which boosts the healing, gives us enlightenment, and also gives resist. The resist part doesn't really count. This counts the 25% extra healing and the fact that she gets enlightenment, because her healing or the battle skill is based off attack and enlightenment. So that's why I try to give her as much enlightenment as possible. And keep in mind the fact that she only heals the target that she selects and everybody under invisibility. And the way that she brings invisibility is from her ultimate, which she grants this only to ranged allies. You see that Ozul transforms into the, he's first of all ranged, but then he transforms into the melee, into this demon form, but he still counts as a ranged unit, which means Thea's just perfect to land that invisibility and debuff immunity on Ozul as well. So that's Thea. Then apart from that, you see I have 62 skill haste. I don't even need that much. It's basically whatever I had from the 2 pieces of Mona Lisa's blessing. Then I have a little bit of triple skill haste here, which I think I could lower this. I could just put this to be another enlightenment one. And then a little bit of skill haste here with the double roll. So that's Thea. Now, when it comes to the DPS, let's have a look at Ozul. One thing I'm going to mention from now is Emperor's Might does not work as well. So I think Emperor's Might is only better here if you have attack down on all the time. Otherwise, you're better off with the aerial battle roar. At least from what I've tested, from what I've seen other people. I basically did 200 Venom rounds yesterday to try and get myself some more aerial battle roar because I had no attack percent chests. So let's go and check them out. So first of all, Ozul, 99% crit rate, 242 crit damage, 4.2k attack, nothing else really matters. I do have his exclusive artifact, crit damage over here, attack over here, and I do have the defense penalty artifact that, the defense penalty glove, that basically means they do more damage when defense penalty is out. So because I have Witch's Remains on Taldi, and defense penalty is basically on all the time, this one's perfect. But if you do not have good enough of these ones, you can always use this one, which is the Chaos Symbiosis. The reason for this is you still get a 30% increased damage, but you're not affected with this part, with the recharge speed and the ultimate energy, because, like I mentioned earlier, shadow energy do not count as ultimate energy. So you're basically not affected by the bad side of this, only by the good side. So keep that in mind. Chaos Symbiosis and then Strike the Unprepared are the best ones to use on Shadow. Then when it comes to Aspalta, I have the Horseshoe Artifact. Like I said, see Chaos Symbiosis crit damage glove. She's 88% crit rate, 291 crit damage. I impressed myself with this. 3.7k attack, almost 3.8. And then again, Aerial Battle Roar, crit damage glove, crit damage positive rune, and attack negative. It's not the best, but it's good enough. Then when it comes to Tatoth, he's the one that uses Ravatrix's Roots. This artifact is the best artifact, at least from what I've tested, when it comes to epics or lower, when it comes to damage. Like as an example, on somebody like Ice Blast, like Gerthin or Bledin, this one is not as good as the Ravatrix's Roots. That's from extensive testing, so definitely keep that in mind. The reason for that is these stats basically scale off of your total in the fight and not your base one. So that's why it's so much better than something like the Blooms of Prina. But when it comes to Tatoth, I have him with 73% crit rate, 226 crit damage, 3.8k attack. Like I said, the Roots. Again, Chaos Symbiosis Glove. Crit damage over here, again, not the best as you can see. Resistance over here, I wanted more crit rate, so that's why I'm using this. You'd prefer attack if you have more crit rate and stuff like that. Then let's go over to Taldi. So Taldi, because Taldi doesn't do as much damage, he's the one that's in the Witch's Remains, basically keeps the Witch's Remains on all the time. Paired with Aspalta, there's so much chaos energy going on that you're basically every 10 seconds ultimate. And because of that reason, Taldi is the perfect candidate for another Mona Lisa's blessing, because every time he does ultimate, which is every 10 seconds, he's gonna heal the ally with the lowest HP by 15% of his max HP. So I didn't try to focus as much attack, I went with as much HP as I could. Maybe I just gave, I can think, yeah, just a Crude Ray Glove, but the more HP, the better the heals. I also have, again, the Moonlight Blessing, the mythic chest that has a chance to give a better healing, because why not? Then you're gonna see defense over here with some HP percent and Crude Ray. Maybe this one should have actually been HP with HP percent. to boost basically that healing. Maybe that's what I should do. And then over here I have an accuracy, so I have enough accuracy to land the debuffs on the boss. And I think pretty much that's it. That's my team. So again, I hope this helps you. This was more of a showcase, obviously, of my chaos team, but at the same time, like I said, as I explained the skills, I was trying to basically do a guide to try and give you guys some ideas. I still have some more teams like that I want to make videos on. So I have a wild team, I have an ice blast team, I have a rally team, a dauntless one, and then actually a frost one. The cool thing about all of these, as you can see, all of them only have one support. So I'm definitely going to make a video on every single one of these. So if you're interested to see, keep an eye out on the channel so I can show you the teams, explain the presets and whatnot, because this boss is pretty tough. So you want to try and do your best damage possible. But I'm going to leave it at this for today, guys. Thank you all for watching. As always, if you do enjoy my content, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel to see when I upload next, and I'm going to see you on the next one. Peace, love, take care, everyone. Bye, guys.